you are Tamil people. This whole denial of the history that you are not, you are a different race, your gods are different, your language is different, you have nothing to do with the rest. Community to which the students belong, male, female, the cost of education, the children, students, how much they had to pay. As they said, come. Those days there was no such caste consciousness, by the way. Even if you read the Jambudvip Pragadanam, Mardu Pandyars, they have mentioned Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra and Musalman, all unite. There was no caste. The Indians who were serving in the British military, Subedar, Jamadar, Havaldar, Naib, to eliminate, giving you the detail of North Arcot, William Cook's report. In the 630 schools and 69 colleges, there were 1,117 Brahmins, 630 Vaishya, and 4,888 Sudras. The notion that Sudras were not participating in education, all that you need to do is get into that records. We have become intellectually lazy. I am not getting from, I don't have a magic wand or figure. I have dived the archive. There are reports available. Of course, the number of female were less, but it was across the community. There were girl students. 30% of land was brought under taxation, only 5% was left. Educational institutions by 1823 onward, they withered for want of fund. They all died one after another. Heavy taxation, farmers were suffering acute distress. People were giving up their farming, migrating to places here and there. Schools were closed, educational institutions were closed. It was in that backdrop that society responded. How did they respond? A few illustrations. I am not an expert. I only got to a few cases, but I leave it to the people here. Vallalar, Ayya Vaikuntha. All these people started the movement to save the society in their own way. They started also educational institutions, parallel education institutions. Vallalar started a number of education institutions where he made Tamil, Sanskrit and English. They took 500,000, over 5 lakhs Adivasis from central India, what is today Jharkhand, Odisha and Chhattisgarh. And the people used to be paraded on this platform, stripped naked, and the buyers used to look in the teeth and the body whether the person is healthy and put the price. This is how our people were treated, and this is how our people from this land were treated when they were taken to the British colony. Why have we not studied it? We call it migration. What a wonderful term. Activities, how the movement has started, Dravid movement has started, all those things, anti-Brahmin movement has started. The truth is, which we have forgotten, is this was a continuation of what was happening in 19th century. Because when the British destroyed the education, they not only destroyed the institutions, but their targets were the teachers. And teachers were mostly Brahmins. Dharmic injunctions, Brahmins were poor people. They were not people with wealth. He could not even pass his school education. Somebody said that he got his doctorate. I said, well, you got hundreds of doctorate honorary. It is not I like to say his thesis. And if you say that the grammar of Dravidian language is a thesis, it is a bunkum, it is a nonsense. And the national consciousness has started consolidating. What the British did, they used the religion in the north and race in the south. In the name of religion, they started promoting the Muslim League to break or weaken the national freedom movement. Here in Madras, they used racial divide. And they used their collaborators, the handpicked people, to carry it forward. This year, on this Republic Day, Raj Bhavan published an invitation card. We say, Kudiyarisu Dinam. Somebody comes and says, Sir, Dinam is not a Tamil word. It is not a Tamil word. I say, is it so? No, sir. Then Why we have Dinakaran, Dinamani, Dinatandi, Dinamalar? We every day say Dinamum. Why? Why this hatred? A young man at the age of 25, coming from a modest family, nothing to lose. He was not a person endowed with rich inheritance which British could have grabbed, nothing. All that he had to share was his poverty. But yet, he could not bear the atrocities of the British. And you know, in Tirunelveli, the place where that was the epicenter of the beginning of atrocities. The first British military camp was established near Tirunelveli, Palayamkottai. Even in 1806, Vellore rebellion, most of the troops were from Tirunelveli because they were carrying the scars. And this young, great person could not bear the suffering of his people at the hand of atrocious foreigner. And so he assassinated the district collector who represented the empire, the British Empire, imperial. Of course, at the time, it was company. Friends, yesterday, in our state, in hundreds of colleges, we celebrated Jambudvip Pragadanam, because great Mardu Pandyas, not only brave warriors, but great visionary, who revealed that a strategic document, Jambudvip Pragadanam, giving a call not only to the rulers, numerous, but to the people of all communities, people of Bharat, to the Indians who were serving in the British military, Subedar, Jamadar, Havaldar, Naibs, urge them all to eliminate these wretches, Europeans, wherever they are. Unitedly fight, liberate this motherland. They were martyred on 24th of October. That is the martyrdom day we will observe. But yesterday was that visionary revelation of the visionary document, and we observed all over the state. Friends, here the tragic story is that a calculated game is being played on our memory. Memory to forget things, forget the history, forget who we were, who were our forefathers, what all they did, what all they suffered, for us to breathe this air of independence and create a fictitious narrative, and in the process causing an cultural genocide, destroying the identity of our people, their culture, their history. Advocate Jagannathan said he read something in the history he could not read as far as he is concerned. I say with confidence, as a chancellor, I have reviewed this curriculum of all the all the universities in my state. There is near blackout of national freedom movement. In fact, the last 200 years of history of this place, the history of the people of this place, the 19th century and the 20th century. The 19th century is only a glorification of the British. They gave us this, they gave us that. And 20th century is a legacy of carrying on a fabricated fake ideology. When the Center of South Indian Studies, they took up the project, and Advocate Jagannath, he produced the book. Unlike Justice Vedyanathan, I can claim I have read from page to page. And I tell you, this book is so rich in material, so rich in evidence, that I can confidently say that this book is highly, highly condensed. Actually, this book carries the seeds for multiple books where it has to be elaborated. The atrocities that the British committed on our people and how our people responded. In our whole country, whole Bharat, all over, British could not capture 1 inch of the territory without fight. People fought, gave their life. Here, yesterday while we were observing this Jambudvip Pragadanam Divas, we talked about Battle of Panchalan Kurichi, 1798 to 1801, 3 years. What a fight. Thousands of our people gave life. It's the story all over the country. But what happened here was something far more insidious, far more sinister. You know that when the company, the East India Company, began capturing the territory, beginning the Battle of Plassey in mid-18th century, and by 1765, when they got the right of Diwani, the taxation, that means Bengal was de facto under the company control. Technically, it was still with the Mughals. And at that point of time, Robert Clive, who was the governor of Bengal, he wrote to the company headquarters that we are a trading company. Our USP, our competence lies in trade. Now we are capturing territory. Administration is not our forte. We don't know how to do it. So he suggested that British government should take over. The matter was hotly debated. And eventually, they came to a conclusion, and largely based on a report by the advisor to the colonial affairs, advisor to the British government on colonial affairs, because British had begun the experience of colonizing. They had colonized North America. They had colonized some other territory in the world. So they had the experience. They had an office of advisor to the colonial affairs. And University of Edinburgh was their associate, and Professor Adam Ferguson was the advisor. Eventually, his report that was accepted by the government, where he says that our experience of colonization or colonizing North America and other places cannot be replicated in India. Because what they did in other places, was North America, Australia and other, they annihilated the indigenous population. And they settled, they captured and got established. Adam Ferguson said it is not possible in India. Not possible in India because, first of all, it's large population. You cannot inherit this population. And the most important point that he mentioned, or he brought the attention of the British government, was this country, though ruled by numerous rulers, at the level of society, the country is united. If you do something in one part, there will be reaction in some other part. And we know it happened. Take, for example, 1905, when the British partitioned Bengal on communal line. It was a partition of Bengal. But the fire broke out here in this land. It was that partition that provoked great V.O. Chidambaram Pillai to join the freedom movement. Lot many people came on the street. It is not acceptable. They could have kept quiet. Something happening in Bengal, why should they bother about it? No. What Ferguson said was right. That though there were numerous rulers and kings, the people at the level of society, Samaj, there was unity. And that would action at one point will have reaction all over. So you cannot replicate the model of colonization which you have had elsewhere. On India it is not possible. And then he said, then what should be the objective of the British Empire? Further, before that he said, since you cannot replicate the experiment, so what should be the objective of the British Empire? The empire's objective should be transfer of, it is their word, it's not my word, transfer of as much wealth as speedily as possible from India to England. Number one. Number two, make the empire as enduring as possible. And then he said, for transfer of wealth as speedily as possible, you may have to bend or break the rules. If the crown takes over, the servants of the crown will keep quoting rules, regulations. We all know how our officers do that. It is not possible to create a problem. Let it be done by the company. Make them do it, you look the other way. And that is when they constituted the first body, they called it Board of Control, comprising commissioners for the affairs of India. And the first president of that was Henry Dundas, very close to the British Prime Minister. And they started running the company from behind. And then to make the empire as enduring as possible. How do you make the empire as enduring as possible? And there they came to the conclusion that they have to change the cultural DNA of this country. Their history has to be changed. People must be made to forget who they are or who they were. They started concocting fabricated history of this place. They conducted detailed study of indigenous education system. And here, in Madras Presidency, at the time, Munro was the Governor General. In June, 25th of June, 1822, he sent a letters to all the district collectors in the presidency, in Madras Presidency, to collect the details of native education system. And the form that he prescribed was pretty elaborate. Taluk-wise. How many schools? How many institutions of higher education? They called it colleges. Students. Community to which the students belong. Male, female, teachers. The cost of education, the students, how much they had to pay. Teachers, the salary of the teachers. A detailed, exhaustive study. And the collectors did a faithful job. They gave their report. The reports are here in archives for anyone to see. And you read it. What a robust education system that we had. I give you an illustration. North Arcot district. Within a year, all the collectors submitted their reports. North Arcot district, William Cook was the collector. On 3rd of March 1823, within 9 months, he submitted the report, taluk-wise. And you know, the data that comes out is voluminous data. There were 630 schools and 69 institutions of higher learning, which they called colleges, in North Arcot district. As students, as they said, come. Those days there was no such caste consciousness, by the way. Even if you read the Jambudvip Pragatanam, Mardi Pandyars, they have mentioned Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra and Musalman, all unite. There was no caste. And in this survey, since I am giving you the detail of North Arcot, William Cook's report, in the 630 schools and 69 colleges, there were 1,117 Brahmins, 630 Vaishya, and 4,888 Sudras. The notion that Sudras were not participating in education, all that you need to do is get into that records. We have become intellectually lazy. All these are records I am not getting from, I don't have a magic wand figure. I have dived the archive. These are reports available. Female. Of course, the number of female were less. But it was across the community. There were girl students studying. Fees of the students' fees. No fees was charged. Because Vidya Dan was not considered a commercial activity. So students were not to pay any fees, nor teachers were paid any salary. Teachers were only given the subsistence. They lived, their needs were met. These institutions were supported by the community assets, essentially the land. And at that point of time in Madras Presidency, 35% of the land was community land. So the entire source of revenue to run these educational institutions, where students could come and study, they could have meals, and along with that, there were other institutions also, institutions where the travelers could come and stay and walk, the pilgrims could come and take a rest for a couple of days, their meals have to be met. All these were supported by this community land. That community land was the source of to sustain the education system. So what Munro did, the 35% land, which was exempt from taxation until then because community land, he promptly reduced to 5%. 30% of land was brought under taxation, only 5% was left. Educational institutions by 1823 onward, they withered for want of fund. They all died one after another. What were the subjects which were taught? Subjects taught were Vedas, other epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, Ganitam, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, Vaidya, music, dance, comprehensive. Medium of teaching. In schools, native language. Tamil, Tamil area, Telugu, Telugu area, Kannada, Kannada area, Malayalam, Malayalam area. In higher education, one of the two. Two of them. Tamil, Sanskrit. Telugu, Sanskrit. Kannada, Sanskrit. Malayalam, Sanskrit. This was the language of teaching in higher education. Systematically, all were destroyed, all were killed. And alternative system created by the British that came up. We all know that India Charter Act 1813 had mandated the British government to direct the company to evangelize India. And that is under that project, they started bringing what they call it SPG, Society for Promotion of Gospel. They came and they started massive conversion. They made it compulsory. One thing which Jagannath did not elaborate, I don't know what compelled him. In the letter of November 1839, please don't compel us to give up the religion which our forefathers have been practicing for thousands of years for getting admission in your school. The core issue was that, because they had made it compulsory, that for admission, native schools, native colleges were closed. This admission here, you have to take your faith. Society was bubbling with anger, seething with anger. It was in that backdrop that a great man, Ghazalur Lakshmi Arasuchetti, he came up and he took this initiative, organizing, creating unity among them, articulating the organized voice, publishing the Madras Crescent, so that the message reaches out to large number of people. He did phenomenal work. Forgetting him is a sin. We cannot forget him and people like him. But friends, also, this entire 19th century is like black box. Hardly any work has been done. That was the period of ferment. when British started all these atrocities, having taken the lands, heavy taxation, farmers were suffering acute distress, people were giving up their farming, migrating to places here and there. Schools were closed, educational institutions were closed. Conversion was at the peak, forced conversion. It was in that backdrop that society responded. How did they respond? A few illustrations. I am not an expert. I only got to a few cases, but I leave it to the people here to do that, to experts here, to students and scholars to do the research. It was in that backdrop that great people emerged, like Vallalar, Ayya Vaikuntha. All these people started the movement to save the society in their own way. They started also educational institutions, parallel education institutions. Vallalar started a number of education institutions where he made Tamil, Sanskrit and English 3 subjects. Today, of course, Sanskrit is banished from all the universities, all the state universities. There is hardly any Sanskrit. Department exists only on paper. This 19th century was the period of maximum suppression, maximum oppression. Another thing, which is completely unresearched, not talked about. Several hundred thousands of our people were forcibly taken from our land, largely from South Tamil Nadu, as slaves, as indentured laborers to work in British colony in Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Burma, Mauritius, Fiji. Through inducement, intimidation, coercion, kidnapping. There was slave market. Something like this happened also in the northern part. When the British discovered the tea in Assam, they wanted laborers. That was not the time when we had mechanized economy. Human labor, animal labor, these were the things, assets. These were the capital for the production. And when they found it, they took 500,000, over 5 lakhs Adivasis from central India, what is today Jharkhand, Odisha and Chhattisgarh. Took them again as slaves. And when they started taking, I don't know how many of you have read Alex Haley, The Root. That is when the colonizers in America started taking the slaves from Africa. It was worse than that. But the slave trade to the northeast of India, Assam, is documented. How the people were taken through all this inducement, coercion, kidnapping, false promises, trapped, and how they were intermediaries, labor sardars. And how the labor hordes, where you sell vegetables, they used to sell labor. And the people used to be paraded on this platform, stripped naked, and the buyers used to look in the teeth and the body whether the person is healthy and put the price. This is how our people were treated, and this is how our people from this land were treated when they were taken to the British colony. Why have we not studied it? We call it migration. What a wonderful term. Why do we have to call it? Why don't we accept it fact? It was forced slave trade. This again happened in 19th century. These are areas which we have not studied. And what happened in 20th century is nothing but a continuation of the 19th century in other names. I was going through the curriculum syllabus of my universities, history, political science, literature. I find in the 20th century, activities, how the movement has started, Dravid movement has started, all those things, anti-Brahmin movement has started. But the truth is, which we have forgotten, is this was a continuation of what was happening in 19th century. Because when the British destroyed the education, they not only destroyed the institutions, but their targets were the teachers. And teachers were mostly Brahmins. They were the one who were targeted. And there are a number of stories, a number of, not only stories, documents. It was an outright persecution by the British, because it has been the tradition, because through long time in our civilizations, as we know, the Vidya Dan is not a commercial activity. It is not a transaction. It is something called punya. So the teachers were not paid. And by tradition, by our dharmic injunctions, Brahmins were poor people. They were not people with wealth. But they had the knowledge. They used to teach. Our Shastra says, Veda says, Vayam Rashtre Jagriyam Purohita. Purohita, lead the way. And wake up, they keep the nation alive, Rashtra alive. This was the job that they were doing. And so they were the target, that they are the guys who will create a problem. Systematically targeted. And then came people like the hordes of people like Bishop Caldwell and all, who started creating a fake history of racial theory. I have said it on some other platform. This man was a school dropout. He could not even pass his school education. Somebody said that he got his doctorate. I said, well, you got hundreds of doctorate honorary. It is not I like to say his thesis. And if you say that the grammar of Dravidian language is a thesis, it is a bunkam, it is a nonsense. It cannot be a thesis. He was made a philologist by vested interest. And that became the document to create the racial divide in our country. And so here are people, some people, those who have been the beneficiary of this. And this is what they continued. When the 20th century came and the national consciousness started consolidating, what the British did, they used the religion in the north and race in the south. In the name of religion, they started promoting the Muslim League to break or weaken the national freedom movement. Here in Madras, they used racial divide. And they used their collaborators, the handpicked people, to carry it forward. So what they did is not their original thinking. In fact, they might be strong in muscle and money, but intellectually they are very deprived. They carried what the British gave it to them. This is what, yes, this is how you are a different race. Your language is different. This year, on this Republic Day, Raj Bhavan published an invitation card. We say, Kudiyarisu Dinam. Somebody comes and says, Sir, Dinam is not a Tamil word. It is not a Tamil. I say, is it so? No, sir. Then why we have Dinakaran, Dinamani, Dinatandi, Dinamalar? We every day say Dinamum. Why? Why this hatred? And then the people say, we are not Indian, India is not a nation. Somebody says Indians are Africans, somebody says Chinese, Arabians. Now this is a very dangerous thought. This is a highly divisive. We need to bring the truth out to the people. We need hundreds of researchers. One Jagannath is not enough. They need many, many, because a story of such a large number of people over a century and a half is not a joke. Every aspect of it needs to be studied, needs to be researched. And the good thing is, the sad thing is that this has faded from our memory. We don't remember. In fact, I'm not surprised, because in the curriculum we don't have it. So all our young people under the age of 50, they do not know Bharat here, because they have not been told in their schools, in their colleges. It is not there. Especially in colleges, it is not there. Even though it has faded from our memory, we might have forgotten the numerous freedom fighters and the martyrs who gave their life. But the good thing is, or the saving grace is, that the documents are available. All that we need to do is commit ourselves, dig up those documents, do the study, do the research, publish it for the sake of. It cannot be erased, and we must do it. Because at stake is the integrity of the nation, at stake is the identity of a people. Who are Tamil people? This whole denial of the history, that you are not, you are a different race, your gods are different, your language is different, you have nothing to do with the rest. This fabricated false ideology, which self-life is long over, is very, very dangerous. It can only be countered with a genuine research. And it will not happen for some more time from our universities. It has to be done by people outside. It has to be done by our institutions like Center for South Indian Studies and others who have to do it. I like to congratulate Advocate Jagannathan for his work. If you read the book, I feel that way, that it will inspire you to do some work, to know more about it, because it is a catalyst. It is not just a compendium of documents and facts, but about going through it, it will provoke you. It will pique your interest to know more. And I am sure some of the readers would take up the work of doing further research also. That would be a great service to our people, to our civilization, to our culture, to our nation. Thank you very much once again. Jai Bharat.